The St. Louis Blues had a nice comeback win against the Carolina Hurricanes. Let's talk about it here on Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I'm your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, I'm going to talk to you about the big win against the Canes, offer sheet players, and of course, let's talk about the future, because my last episode, some comments were made surrounding Drew Bannister, Doug Armstrong, and maybe the plan for this team going forward that I really want to address with you all. We have a very exciting show today here on Locked On Blues. But first, I want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started $200 and bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So the Blues had a 4-3 victory over the Carolina Hurricanes this past weekend on Saturday, and it was a great win. Now, listen, I understand what you're about to say. Haley, can the Blues get on the board first? I mean, sure. I mean, they did in Vegas, but they lost that game. However, this game displayed and amplified exactly what the Blues had to do, which is come back. And it wasn't like, here's the thing, too. Let's not be so dramatic. The Blues came back from being down from 1 goal. As though I understand, it wasn't really a comeback win. I mean, kind of, because I had to come back from being down a goal. They were also getting like outshot like crazy. I have some statistics I want to read to you, because the one thing about me in doing this podcast, I have a thing called Blues Notes. I make notes before every single show. It usually takes me about 2 hours to compile, and it's filled with a bunch of statistics because I'm a big stat nerd. So Joel Hofer had 37 saves. And here's the thing. Hofer saved in the beginning of the game 18 saves when the Blues were only shooting on net 4. So it was a 19-4 ratio. Canes out shooting the Blues. Hofer stopped 18, which is actually insane. So again, Hofer did have a good game. But then luckily for St. Louis, about the halfway mark of the second period, so I guess the halfway point of the game in general, within a 3-minute span, Matthew Joseph gets the Blues on the board for his second goal of the season. Jake Neighbors has the second goal of the season. And then, of course, my guy, Dylan Holloway, gets his first goal of the season, assisted, by the way, by Philip Broberg. Then in the third period, the inevitable happened, right? 1 minute in on the power play, Shane Gostisbehere ends up getting a power play goal. So then it's 3-2. Blues still have the lead. Then, Canes score again like a couple minutes later. So now it's tied. But you know who does something? How about Kapanen? That's right. Now, I was shocked as you guys were. But again, the goal was an absolute beauty. And I'm not dismissing that, but I feel like I've been really hard on Cappy, and it's not because I want to be hard on him, right? I just kind of feel like maybe he's just not the best player to have in the lineup. And I think that you can agree in an aspect on that. Again, I'm not saying that he's like this awful player. I just don't understand why sometimes they have him in the lineup over other players. However, again, totally up to Bannister and who he thinks is right. But that goal was a beautiful goal. Very happy for him, because here's the thing. And if we want to be completely honest, this game was a much needed win for the Blues. Now, I'm not saying that the Blues, had to do it, right? However, it definitely did help with the momentum, right? Again, the Blues scoring those 3 goals in a span of 3 minutes is actually insane, okay? Joseph scored from the slot, Neighbors with a slap shot at the top right. And again, Holloway getting his first goal as a Blue. So it's funny. The 2 oldest players, by the way, were Ryan Suter and Brent Burns. And believe it or not, and I couldn't believe this, Brent Burns is actually younger than Ryan Suter for 48 days, which is actually kind of insane. So the Blues played a good game, okay? And I know I'm losing track of the whole age thing, because I just think it's kind of funny that Brent Burns is younger than Suter, but Anyways, Coach Bannister did comment on the team. I thought as a whole, our group in the second period was committed to playing the goal line, and it allowed for our forwards to get on the forecheck. Get our D more active, but keeps the puck alive on the walls. Then the offensive opportunities started to come for us. And that's all it was, right? The first period, the Blues have struggled to have any offensive opportunities, which you could kind of tell by the shots on goal or the puck possession time. It was very obvious a Carolina game. And again, if it wasn't for Joel Hofer being so on it, making those 18 out of 19 saves, the game could have had a completely different outcome. When I was watching the game, I was watching that first period, and I just remember thinking to myself, it is over, right? But here's the thing with the St. Louis Blues, and I think this is somewhat of the identity of the team this season. This is a comeback team. This is a team where it's not over until it's over. And I think that, again, in that VGK game, I know they lost by a goal. However, as I've stated, if there was maybe 5 more minutes on the clock, the Blues would have been able to tie it. The St. Louis Blues have done something truly remarkable. And I know the Wild is like the one exception that we kind of can't talk about. But the Blues are able to come back if it's by a goal, by a couple goals. And they don't get fatigued in the final frame, which I feel like happens to most players on most teams, right? You hit, 40 minutes and all of a sudden it's like a deer in headlights. What do I do? I'm tired. But the Blues, they keep the energy, they keep the momentum alive. And personally, what do I think about that? Well, I think that we have a pretty fun hockey team that we're watching. And I think that's the one thing, too, looking on the ice during that game and just watching even the spatial awareness and just the lines in general. I mean, again, I am so proud of Jake Neighbors. And I don't think enough words can be said about my excitement for him, right? And next week when I get to interview the guys in person, I cannot wait to talk to Neighbors, about this momentum shift that he had. Hopefully he still has that momentum. But I am so excited to get to talk to maybe a Philip Broberg and a Dylan Holloway. I have so many questions about this team than I do answers about this team. And I think as a fan, I think as a journalist, right? I think of somebody that just is very involved with the NHL in general. You kind of know the good teams, right? Winnipeg right now has won all 5 of their games. That's a good team. It's kind of scary, to be honest. But Winnipeg is a good team. Dallas is a good team, right? And I'm focused more on our Central Division. However, when you look at some of the other teams in the league, the New Jersey Devils are playing really good hockey. So it changes season to season. Both the Blues, what changed the most is that the guys that the Blues acquired this offseason are the players that are really stepping up. I mean, Matty Joe, unbelievable. P.O. Joseph looks great on defense. And I'll admit, was I tough on the Blues organization for not playing Scott Perunovich? Yeah, I'll admit that. I'll be the first one to admit that. Do I think he should have a chance still? I don't know. Oh, my opinion is changing. Okay, well, I'll talk to you more about that later in today's show. I'm getting a little sidetracked here. See what happens when I'm just passionate. Anyways, P.O. did talk about, it wasn't P.O. Matthew spoke about the win. Braden Shen held it down there and makes a pass that kind of just missed me by not much and went into the back. P.O. Joseph, and he did a good play after that, Matthew said. I was just in the right place, and it turned that way, so I was happy that it went in. Valid. Yes, with how the goal was, it did kind of deflect off of him, and I guess Captain Braden Shen could have, but it is what it is. Anyways, Dylan Holloway spoke, and he said, I felt like it was the only right thing I could do. I was in tight, so I figured why not try it. I've had some chances in the last couple of games, and it's nice to see one go in. I just had to make sure. I just wanted that one bad, so I'm happy I got to see it go in. I am really happy for Dylan because I understand the frustration, right? You played a handful of games, you've had opportunities, and the pucks just weren't going in. You finally get your first one wearing the blue note. So I'm hoping that this is a huge confidence boost for Holloway. But you know what else is a huge confidence boost for Haley Way? Indeed. If you need a hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 3,500 million monthly global visitors, according to Indeed data, a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work, use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all one place so easy because it caters to exactly your needs, okay? It is leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibility at Indeed.com/locked-on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. You need a hire. You need Indeed. Let's talk about the offer sheet players. Who is that? That is Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. Okay. Hi. I am a huge fan of both of these guys. And I thought the offer sheets were incredible. And the return that the Blues are getting so far is actually pretty cool. So a really cool stat came out from NHL Network. And it says, Philip Broberg is one of the 2 Blues defensemen in franchise history to begin a season with a 6-game point streak. Are you kidding me? A 6-game point streak. Like, Dylan Broberg is actually insane. Here's the thing. Philip, sure. You can say what you want about him. He's more of an offensive defenseman, if that makes sense. However, it's still incredible. It's still an improvement to the Blues' blue line. I think anything helps, to be honest. Like, I'm not trying to be that person, but like anything literally helped the Blues at that point. And just adding his body on the ice is making a huge difference. Then you have Dylan Holloway. And I understand he just got his first goal of the season a couple of nights ago. However, what I do want to say about Dylan Holloway is that he is playing good hockey. He has good awareness, especially when it comes to puck and net and spatial awareness between the two things, which is actually very vital, which means that he has a good hockey IQ. And I think his approach to the game is actually pretty impressive considering he spent a lot of time in the AHL. So I feel like for him, I have to keep in mind that not every player is going to start off as hot maybe as Philip. And again, get that. However, Holloway has contributed to the ice a lot. And he's able to adjust. I mean, you've seen him play the first line. You've seen him play the second line. You've seen him play everywhere, essentially. And I think that's what makes him such an important player is that you can stick him anywhere and he will thrive. I think that the offer sheets, though, and I did say by Christmas, we would be able to kind of tell if it was, as you say in Costco guy terms, if it was a boom or a doom. I'm sorry, too much pop culture reference in that. But if it was good or bad, essentially. I think that these offer sheets, though, and I'm saying this in October 21st, I think these offer sheets are working out pretty well. Now, granted, I get it. Things can happen. Things can go wrong. I'm not naive. However, I want to be excited about my team. I want to be excited about players that are doing positive things on the ice. I want to see how long Philip Broberg can keep this point streak going. Will Philip Broberg continue this point streak against against the Winnipeg Jets tomorrow? Why did I say Edmonton? I almost said Edmonton Jets. No, but I mean, it's an unrealistic thing to have in mind, thinking that he's going to continue this point streak, right? But it's fun, right? It makes it fun. I think that Doug Armstrong is just so smart when it comes to how these two players have been playing. And it's funny, like I'll talk to people all the time, right? Not even fans of either team, of either the Oilers or, here in St. Louis, but just hockey fans in general. Believe it or not, there are people that just strictly like the game of hockey that exists. And the one thing that people say to me is, well, it's a lot of money. Do you really think it's going to work out? The answer is yes. And when you think about the money, it's only for a couple years, these contracts, and the cap is going to go up. So it's really not going to be as bad financially over the years, right? It's not like they sign these guys to like a 7-year contract. No, it's 2 years. It is fine. And then the whole question is, oh, well, if the Blues extend them, then they're going to have to pay them more money and blah, blah, blah. Okay, we'll cross that bridge when it gets there. I think right now, for this current St. Louis Blues team, this is the right fit. Both of these players, too, seem happy playing here. And I think that projecting of the what ifs about the future of Broberg and Holloway is not fair to them because we've been seeing really good hockey out of them. I mean, I think about Dylan Holloway because he was the one where everyone was kind of saying, okay, well, if Edmonton extends money, they would give it to Broberg and not Holloway. And everyone's like, oh, well, what if we just get Holloway, right? Or what if we just get Broberg? And then you compare the two players and who has more talent? These are two different players, okay? One of them's a forward and the other one's a defenseman. So, like, first off, two different players. Secondly, they're both young in their career, right? They spent a lot more time in the minors than they did in the NHL, in the show, as you might say. So I think that for both of them, yes, they did get playoff experience, right? They did go to the Cup Finals, which is basically all the experience you can get, right? Except winning the whole thing. However, I think that it's translating to how they're playing now because you can tell they're playing at a speed that's fast. They're playing aggressive. They're taking their time, and you can tell when they're scanning the ice and seeing what's going on. The element to their game and how they approach the game is different. And I just want to mention this too, because I was really like thinking about it, right? During Robert Thomas's rookie season, the Blues and Jordan Binnington, like there was a lot of guys on that team that were rookies that season. And I think about that a lot, where they got to go to the Cup Finals. Obviously, they won the Stanley Cup and became champions. Broberg and Holloway, they both went all the way. They just didn't win. But I feel like it's something that these guys can relate to. Young in their career, they were all able to go experience the Stanley Cup Finals. And maybe that's me looking at certain players a certain way. But I think maybe that's why their Robert Thomas excelled so well and so quickly is because he had to adapt to playoff hockey right away. I mean, like he had no time really to adjust. Like it was, hey, happy rookie season. You're playing, in the Cup Finals. I know that sounds kind of silly when I say it out loud, but I do think that did have an element that kind of maybe spruced up his game a little bit. I don't know. Listen, I'm talking out loud here on this podcast because that's what we do on Locked On Blues. We just kind of talk about things, hockey things. I want to talk about the future with you guys, but first I want to talk to you about your futures that you can place at FanDuel. The transition, baby. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season big with a return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-plays, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, let's be very transparent on this podcast. I'm watching the Eagles game yesterday, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to use my FanDuel app because I can place a bet as the game is going on. So I'm going to do a live same game part leg, right? I go on the app. Okay. Saquon over 50 yards rushing. I did the over. Then it was total points. Okay, let's go do 30 total points. And then for Jalen Hurts, I had him throwing more than 140. He only threw 114. Yeah, so I lost. However, I was that person at the bar that was like, look at my FanDuel app. Look what I'm doing. I am placing a bet, a parlay as the game is actively going on. So yes, I love my FanDuel app. I use it. You don't always win. However, I got the money guaranteed, right? Because FanDuel lets you shine. It makes you feel like a superstar, and that's why I love you, FanDuel. Let's talk about the future. Hi. This kind of goes to Scott Perunovich. I'm going to be honest. I made an episode saying give him a chance, referring to Scott Perunovich, right? Because again, why even extend him if you're not going to play him? Doesn't make sense to me. However, I don't make the decisions. Doug Armstrong does. Drew Bannister does, not me. I don't make the decisions. Somebody said, and I'm just kind of saying verbatim what they said, that Drew Bannister doesn't want the team to succeed because Doug Armstrong is telling him that he doesn't want the team to succeed because they want to get a high draft pick. Are you telling me that you think Scott Perunovich, if you put him in, is going to make this team look so good on the ice? That's going to make them look so good. That's going to get them a cup? Let's be for real. If you have that theory about the Blues not wanting to be a successful team, wouldn't you have him on the ice instead of not having him on the ice? I don't necessarily know why this became a debate in my comments. And then I saw other comments of people being like, yeah, like if the Blues don't make it to the playoffs, it's probably for the best. They get a better draft pick. Why are we thinking like this? We are a couple weeks into the season, and it's already about the Blues getting a good draft pick for this year's draft. Let me just remind you of something. There are teams that are a lot worse than the St. Louis Blues so far this season. Like, you think the Blues are bad. And I have a really hard time understanding that mindset. I just want to remind you that the Predators, by the way, this was a team I said that was not going to be successful. I called it out. I said all this hype about Nashville, and they're not going to look good. And guess what? They're 0-5. They have yet to win a game. But I said it. I said it the whole time. And like, am I proud of myself for saying it? Kind of, because like, I just don't want the Predators to succeed. Like, why would I want a team in my own division to do well? However, the Avalanche are 2-4, right? The Blackhawks are 2-3-1, and then you have us. Now, let's be for real. We have 8 points. Okay. 8.6 games. Most you can get is 12. Not bad. 4-2. Then you have, again, as I said, the Winnipeg Jets who are 5-0. You have the Stars who are 5-1. You have Utah, and I said Utah was going to be a sneaky good team, and they are 4-1-1 with 9 points. And then you have the Wild, who are 3-0-2. Wow, they've yet to lose a game. Getting those points. Well, I mean, they've lost, but like they still get the point. The reason why I bring this up right now is because there are teams that are worse than the Blues. Like, do I think that the Predators are going to stay this bad? I sure hope so. Do I think that the Avalanche are going to stay this bad? I hope so. Do I think the Blackhawks will? Definitely. Because like they don't have enough talent, right? I take a look at some of these other teams. San Jose has yet to win. I mean, they have, again, points in overtime, but they've yet to like win officially a game, right? Then you look at the Eastern. You have the Panthers right now who are leading the Atlantic with 9 points, who are 4-2-1. Okay. The Bruins, I mean, the Bruins are always good. So like, there's no like, Then you have the Devils, by the way, who are 5-2-1 with 11 points. And then you have the Philadelphia Flyers, who the Blues play next week, who only have 3 points, who are 1-3-1. Yeah. So as I was saying, you have teams that are looking really good right now, and then you have teams that are really struggling right now. But it is so early into the season where you can't really determine where this team is specifically at. You can't determine what's going to happen, the longevity, right? But what I can say about the future of the Blues is to say that they're not good enough already after a few weeks doesn't make sense. I'm not saying this team is cup bound. I'm not saying this team is playoff bound. I said they should go to the playoffs with the talent that they have. They should. I think they have one of the best goalie tandems in the NHL. I think they should go. Do I think they're going to? I don't know yet. It is too early to tell. After a win, it's so easy to say, yeah, the Blues are going to go all the way. But after a loss, it's also just as easy to say, this team isn't good. Let's go put on the brakes. So I don't know. I'm actually about to go to my first WWE event. I'm on my Dirty Dom shirt. So that's why it says dirty. And I'm really excited. I know it was in St. Louis. So I'm excited to see what it's all about. And yeah, I will talk to you tomorrow ahead of the Winnipeg game. Will we end their win streak? Let's find out. I'll talk to you tomorrow here on Locked On Blues.